Hello, everyone. As someone who's not a fan of how massive modern smartphones have gotten, I've always wanted to go the opposite direction and try having a mini smartphone. And so that's what I did. Now, the first problem was determining which phone to buy. Now, there's a ton of mini smartphone listings that you can buy online. Obviously, I don't want to break the bank, right? So I'm not trying to spend as much money as possible. But also, if I buy the most affordable ones, they're often 3G only. Now, I live in the US, and I'm pretty sure that most networks have discontinued 3G, meaning that if I buy that, I'm just buying a mini tablet, and it's not really a cell phone. Anyway, after a little bit of research, that's how I settled on this. The SERVO KING8000. Inside the box, you get the phone itself, USB-A to USB-C, a clear mini case, a screen protector, paperwork, and a SIM eject tool. So I paid $35 for everything, and I can certainly say that it does feel like its price point. Like, for example, the USB cable isn't exactly perfectly finished. Another thing is that the SIM tool, I'm not sure how apparent that is, but it's just very rough to the touch. Even something like this cheap generic SIM tool feels a lot better than the one that came included with the device. So the first thing to talk about is the design. Now, this King8000 pretty clearly mimics the look of an iPhone Pro series model, from the rounded off corners to the general blockiness. So on the right side, you've got your power button and your SIM slot. Now, this device is dual SIM compatible. On the bottom, you've got your USB-C port, and what looks to be speaker grills. On the left, you've got your volume rockers, and on the top there is nothing. Now, when I initially bought the device, it didn't have a headphone jack. Now, I thought that was okay at the time because of how small it was. I mean, it's like the size of a Pokemon card. However, their marketing pictures do not do a good job, just demonstrating how absolutely thick this thing is. It's like twice the size of a modern smartphone. Now, granted, it isn't that huge, but it feels really massive in the hands. It's around a centimeter thick. So on the front you have this screen, and it is around a 3-inch diagonal. Now, while that is absolutely tiny by modern standards, I mean, back in the day, the first iPhone was 3.5 inches, so it really wasn't that big. Speaking of the screen, it's actually pretty good. Viewing angles are pretty decent. There's no color warping at all. While they don't give an official nit rating, it doesn't get too dim, and it doesn't really get too bright. Now, my studio lights are making it seem a lot dimmer than it actually is, but in broad daylight, it is visible, and even in the cases where it isn't, you can just, shield your hand over the entire screen. Now, from what I can see and understand, the refresh rate is only 58.6 Hz, and yeah, it's pretty decent. Now, while the screen resolution doesn't seem too great, I mean, it is 480p, it's actually so small to the point where I think it's perfectly fine. If you're viewing this at any reasonable distance, it seems perfectly sharp enough. So here's a quick speaker test between the King8000 and what I have here, which is the Moto G Play 2024. I thought it would be more fair to just compare a budget device to another budget device rather than comparing it to an iPhone or something. Based on that comparison, I can say that, the speaker on this isn't too great, but it's also not terrible. I mean, I've heard worse. While you would think that the speakers are coming from the bottom, they're actually only coming from the loudspeaker part. Now, volume-wise, volume warning, obviously. It does get pretty loud, but at that point, it's pretty distorted, and I wouldn't say it's a very, comfortable listening experience. Alright, moving on to cameras. While it does appear to have a triple camera setup, these two are just dummy cameras, and this one is your only camera. It's 5 megapixels, and I can say it's not that great. Again, comparison with a Moto G Play, you can just see that, even though this doesn't have that great of a camera, it still vastly demolishes this thing, which is fair, I guess. It is still, at the end of the day, a budget device. It also has a front camera as well, and again, it is not very good. It can record video, 720p 30fps, and if I'm being honest, this is some of the worst video I've ever seen in my life. Alright, finally moving on to performance. So from what I can tell, this thing has a MediaTek MT6737 chipset. Alright, now, ignoring all the numbers and letters, what does that practically mean? This is an 8-year-old budget chipset, which means that performance is absolutely abhorrent. This thing is slow and it is miserable to use. Now, even though my device has 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of storage, I've been stuck on the Subway Surfers loading screen for like a minute now. I set this thing to go before I even started recording. Now, once you do get into the game, you can just see, yeah, the performance is horrible. Look, Subway Surfers isn't an intense game, right? This game is at least 10 years old. I'm not keeping track. What was it, 2012? It's definitely 10 years old. This phone can't handle Subway Surfers, man. It is crazy. And once you do get into the game, frame rate is not very stable. I did some other stress tests. Well, I didn't realize it was a stress test. Now, I loaded up some Fire Emblem Heroes, which, for those of you who don't know, that game is pretty much just a bunch of 2D art. That game is just a bunch of 2D artwork, and it was lagging and crashing trying to run Fire Emblem Heroes. There were no 3D models at all. Now, I also tried running some Roblox and playing a game called, what was it, Prison Life, I think? Now, that game's at least 10 years old. It's been on Roblox as long as I can remember. So, that is not an intense game. I was getting 10 or so frames per second, probably even less, and the game was just not playable. It ended up crashing the device anyway. Oh yeah, the vibration motor is very cheap, but, to be fair, $35. So, another thing about performance, the background playback on YouTube doesn't work.
Clearly he wanted to be seen showing up on a Pat McAfee.
I have YouTube Premium. I just turned off the screen, YouTube has crashed. If I unlock the device, YouTube force quit. The device can't handle YouTube background playback. That is how bad the performance is on this thing. So, something the device is surprisingly good at is running emulators. Now, the frame rate is actually pretty stable. I just can't hit the buttons when they're this small. I am struggling. Wow. But yeah, the frame rate is actually pretty solid. I haven't really stress tested it yet, but from what I've played, which is a minute or so, pretty playable. Damn it. No. So, something weird about the device, even though it reports as having Android 10, if you actually check it, no, it's running Android 9. I don't know, that's just It's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know why you would lie about it. So, on top of the poor performance, the main reason why I don't use this device ever is because the connectivity is just horrible. So, even though I'm connected to network right now, it's like a 50% chance that I stay connected to any network at any time. And when I am connected, if I run a speed test, it's not great because it's very variable. When I ran it earlier today, I was getting like 0.5 download. Well, now I'm getting like 4 download, which is pretty... It's usable, it's not great. Just for control again, the Gplay, I was getting like 50 megabytes download. I'm in the same area, by the way, like I haven't moved. I even tried leeching free Wi-Fi off a store, and because I was walking around the store, this thing kept disconnecting from the store Wi-Fi, meaning that it was an offline tablet, completely useless unless I stay in place. Basically, the internet connectivity is just not very good. Now, the device does support Bluetooth, right? So I figured, okay, maybe I can use it as like an offline audiobook player. So I downloaded my default audiobook app of choice, Hoopla. And the thing is, it can't download the audiobooks. It doesn't give an error code as to why. It just can't download audiobooks. So, what I'm saying is, I'm out $35, and this thing is not very good. So, like, as a last-ditch effort to get some use out of the product, I was like, okay, maybe it can be like a GPS device, right? So I downloaded some offline maps, and it turns out the GPS on this thing is completely unreliable. Like, I don't even have to worry about doxing myself here, because I don't even live within this circle. It can't even detect where I am. What? This thing is completely useless. Okay, so as like a final TLDR, what can this device do? It can play YouTube, but no background playback. It has Bluetooth, and it has very unreliable internet connection, meaning that most of the time, it would be best if it's offline. So what I have here is an MP3 player. That's the only practical use for this thing. Other than the size, I see no reason why you should ever buy this device. If you want something with similar capabilities, you're better off just buying like a used budget device on like eBay for like $10 or so, maybe like 10, 20 bucks. So yeah, this thing is absolutely horrible. Even though I set off this video trying to like get the experience of having a mini smartphone, this thing is just so bad to the point where I still don't know the answer to that question. What I can tell you though is that you should not buy the KING8000 mini smartphone.